Mr. President, aside from the wall, and I just came from McAllen, Texas, Rio Grande Valley,
right.
They're getting hit so hard from coast to coast. All the Border Patrol chiefs tell me, in addition to the wall, they need Congress to roll their sleeves up and to change these laws.
Griff, we could change these laws in 15 minutes. I could change them, catch and release. You know what that is, Democrats.
Yes,
you catch the person, you take their name and you release them, okay? Right. And we're not doing that anymore, and it's just a horrible thing. Chain migration, where you come in and you have you have a lot of people come in with you. Your mother, your father, your uncle, your aunt, your grandmother, your grandfather, your brothers and sisters. And I mean, we had a case where somebody that, as you know, radical Islam, he ran ran many people down on the West Side Highway in New York. You know it well.
Right.
And killed 8 people, wounded, horribly injured 12 people. I mean, sure. Missing arms and legs. And he has many people under chain migration. Many of his relatives have come in with him. It's crazy. And then, of course, you have the lottery, visa lottery, where they pick them and they pick people. And these countries aren't giving us their finest, okay? They're not giving us their finest. I'm not going to say they give us their worst, but, you know, why wouldn't they? So we have to get rid of these things, and we can have it so easy. What has happened, though, and you've seen it, is Mexico now, right, for the first time, is apprehending people and bringing them back with, and this is, otherwise we're going to close up the border.
Are any Democrats willing to work with you to change the laws?
Well, we're going to find out. I think they're getting hurt badly politically, and then once they get hurt badly politically, they'll start working with us. In the meantime, Mexico is doing a job that we could be doing, but Mexico is now apprehending people at their southern border,
right,
and they're bringing them back to Honduras or Guatemala or wherever they come from, El Salvador. They're also stopping the Mexicans from coming in. And we've had a great 4 days, and it only started when I said we're going to close the border. And I will close the border, or I'll put the tariffs on the cars that they make and they send into our country essentially tax-free. And I'll put tariffs on there, and then I'll close the border after that if that doesn't work.
So let's address that. How would you put a tariff on it when your own agreement precludes that?
Well, we haven't finished our agreement yet. So I'll put that in there. I'm going to put it in there because if they, look, people are pouring through Mexico. They come from other countries. I already stopped the money. We pay them over $500 million. Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador, and others. We stopped the money. Some people would say, oh, you should give them more money. The Democrats say give them more money. They're forming caravans to get people out.
I've been in them.
And you know what? They're not putting their best people in those caravans, okay? But they're forming caravans, they're putting people in, they're sending them up. You know it better than anybody. You know what's going on.
So, Mr. President, is it time to call for a summit between yourself, the President of Mexico, the Presidents of Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador?
I don't need a summit. I think we've done very well without the summit. They understand. We're saving $550 million. And I respectfully told, and I thank him very much, because for the last 4 days it's been great. You see that whole stream is drying up. They could stop them at their southern border. And you look at what's happening now. They pulled in 1,500, 1,500 yesterday. They brought them back. They pulled in over 1,000 the day before, over 1,000 the day before that. Today I haven't gotten the number, but I understand it's a lot.
Where I was in RGV, 14 straight days of 1,000 plus, 1,400 yesterday. And this is what I want to address with you. They're releasing now, particularly the family units, to the public. In the fabric of the U.S., tens of thousands are being released and will continue. Are we witnessing the second generation of DACA forming?
No, we're witnessing people that are going to be brought out of the country. The country is full. Our system is full. We can't do it anymore. We go by this horrible Flores situation. You know, that decision is a horror show. We have to release after 20 days. And we built big detention areas, but they fill up immediately. There's never been so many people coming up, and that's because they're gaming the system, and the system has changed for the worse because of what happened with Democrats and what they've done in terms of Congress. So if we change the laws, it would be very easy. But in the meantime, Mexico, if they stop the people from coming in, we won't have a lot of people coming at the border.
News today, your nominee for ICE Director, Ronald Vitiello, 30 years in the job. Why did you withdraw his nomination?
Because we may go a different way. We may have to go a very tough way, and we're going to see, and we'll see. Ron's a good guy. I know him well. He's done a good job, but we may just go a different way, a little bit tougher.
Tough question for you. since you've done so much on immigration and made it a central issue, we may end up, by your administration's own projections, upwards of 1 million undocumented immigrants added to the existing population. What does that say about your administration's
Well,
handling?
I think what happened is I've proven to be right. If we were able to build the wall, now I've gotten the money for the wall, and you take a look at this, I hope you're covering it, because we have miles and miles of it being built right now. Hundreds of miles are under construction, and more importantly, they're under contract. I think 157 miles right now is under contract. They're getting ready to start. The Rio Grande, we're doing a lot of work there. That's where a lot of people come in. And I've shown the people that I was right. I mean, this is what's been happening for a long time. It's been happening for a long time. They didn't even put down the numbers. They didn't used to put down the real numbers. I mean, you look at what's happened. You know, in the old days, they didn't mark down. They didn't say how many people were coming in. What we're doing is the gang members don't get in, and if they do get in, ICE is getting them out. The bad ones. We have a lot of bad ones, you know, that want to get in. And when you look at the caravans, they're composed of people that, I'm sorry, but they're not supposed to be coming into our country, and we're stopping it. But what we will be doing is, now our system is full, and I told our people today, our system is full. We can't take any more. The asylum is being scammed, the whole asylum system. And you have gang members, tough people, saying they're afraid to be in their country. They're not afraid. And then they'll come up with flags. They're holding flags from their country. There's never been so many people coming up, and that's because they're gaming the system, and the system has changed for the worse because of what happened with Democrats and what they've done in terms of Congress. So if we change the laws, it would be very easy. But in the meantime, Mexico, if they stop the people from coming in, we won't have a lot of people coming at the border.
Well, that's President Trump, of course, speaking with Fox News yesterday on the border. This as he continues to make the case to try and solve the crisis that continues there. The president traveling to California yesterday to tour a revamped section of the barrier fencing, after this week backing off those plans to close the border, at least for now. The president instead issuing a one-year warning to Mexico to stop the illegal crossings, or he says he will place tariffs on cars that are made in that country. A threat he issued again this afternoon when he addressed the Republican Jewish coalition in Las Vegas and also talked about immigration there. Joining us for analysis is Jeff Mason, White House reporter for Reuters. Jeff, always good to see you. The president did have warm words for Mexico this afternoon, at least in its efforts to try and enforce their southern border so the caravans don't form there in the first place. Do you think the administration policy can actually hammer that through and get that through to Mexico to try and stop some of these caravans before they even arrive here?
Well, that's the theme that the president has been using for the last couple of days, since initially threatening to close the border about a week ago. He did say in the last few days, and as you say, he repeated it again today, that Mexico has been doing a good job in dealing with some of those migrants coming at its own southern border. But he has also repeated his threat that if that does not continue, or if that were to stop, that he would do one of two things. And the newest thing that he said at the end of this week was that he would put tariffs on cars coming out of Mexico, and the other threat is just a restatement of what he said, which would be to close the border. Now, there was a lot of opposition to that idea from people within his own party after he made that threat, and that's one reason that he backed off, although he says he did not back off. But that was certainly one of the aspects that people were looking at last week after making that initial threat.
Yeah, during his speech this afternoon, he pointed out to the numbers. I mean, 100,000 or so illegals who will be arresting every month, more than 1 million expected this year. I mean, 1 million. In fact, just a few days ago, 2,000, a caravan of 2,000 showed up at the border at Eagle Pass, Texas, in 49 buses. So this is just continuing. I mean, the president is speaking out about it. Do you see any movement on Capitol Hill to try and actually concretely address this further?
Well, I think that the president is certainly going to continue to make it an issue, and that his people are no doubt working as well with folks on Capitol Hill. It's hard for me to predict what sort of legislation might come out of that. I mean, there have been attempts to do comprehensive immigration reform for decades under both Republican and Democratic presidents to no avail. That doesn't seem to be the main thrust of what the president's immigration policy is right now. He's more interested in building a wall and in cutting off illegal immigration, although it's worth noting that a lot of the people who are coming through the border are not coming sort of in the middle. They're going to actual checkpoints and turning themselves in. But that is leading to the system being overwhelmed, and the president used the words the other day during his trip to California that we're full And I think he's hoping that that message will stem the number of people coming through, whether it's the legal checkpoints or not.
Well, I mean, it is legal, of course, to claim asylum, and that's part of the argument. And he reiterated what you just said, that we are full during a speech this afternoon. Let's listen to what he said.
Get out. Sorry, get out. Sorry, can't handle it. And I told my people yesterday, our country's full. We're full. Our system's full. Our country is full. Can't come in. Our country is full. What can you do? We can't handle it anymore. Our country is full. Can't come in. I'm sorry. It's very simple. Never before has a major political party been more outside the American mainstream than the Democrats of today.
I mean, clearly, he says, and the officials say, that the system is overwhelmed.
The country is not full, but the system is struggling. And even in the president, I think, and others have cited the fact that President Obama's Homeland Security cabinet secretary, his secretary, Jay Johnson, has also recognized that there was there is a crisis at the border. So there is bipartisan recognition of the fact that the numbers coming in is overwhelming the system. But there is not bipartisan agreement on how to deal with that, and that leads to some implications for the 2020 election. You're seeing presidential candidates address that. There's a very, very big chasm politically between Democrats and Republicans about the message they want to send to Americans, to immigrants, to the rest of the world about what this country is and how we deal with immigration.
And finally, Jeff, one issue of asylum, of people legally seeking asylum, which are allowed to, when of course, when you're fleeing political persecution and crime and this sort of thing, some of the conditions they are facing. The president ridiculed that process, saying basically lawyers tell them, have them read a card to tell our Border Patrol officers what to say in order to get into the country under the asylum claim. Let's listen to what the president said about that.
Some of the roughest people you've ever seen. People that look like they should be fighting for the UFC. They read a little page given by lawyers that are all over the place. You know, lawyers. They tell them what to say. You look at this guy, you say, wow, that's a tough cookie. I am very fearful for my life. I am very worried that I will be accosted. If I was sent back home, no, he'll do the accosting.
Do you see any modifications in the law as it now stands?
Well, I think, number one, the president just doesn't have any patience right now for people coming into the country when he sees the fact that the system is overwhelmed. That said, I mean, I know that there were people laughing at what he said in that room, but it is not a laughing matter for a lot of people who are applying for asylum, who really are facing hardship in the countries from which they're coming. But it creates a real dilemma right now for the United States in terms of what the system can handle. I think politically speaking, and we touched on this a little bit before, it suggests that the president is going to continue hammering on this issue as he goes into the 2020 election, and Democrats no doubt will be hammering back.
Jeff Mason, White House correspondent for Reuters, former president of the White House Correspondents Association, who presided over that annual dinner. Jeff, thank you. Always good to see you.
Thank you.
Of course.